So that means that if you have a question, you can put it in the chat. I may not be able to get it since we're about to start going through the PowerPoint. I may not be able to get it until a little later. But if it's an important question for you, then just keep asking it until I am able to reply, right? All right, so let me just clear the screen here. You would have noted the topic. So I was trying to put some interesting images to keep us engaged in the presentation. But unfortunately, letters, emails, reports didn't really lend themselves to anything interesting and comic-y. So instead I thought, okay, well, we're in July, and sometimes a thing people do is Christmas in July. So you'll see a lot of Christmas images in the presentation, right? Not for any other reason than we just wanted to have something nice to look at. All right, so letters, emails, reports, again, is our topic. So I'm going to the second slide. I'm just typing a message in the chat here. Anyone who cannot hear should probably log out and log back in. Right? Since most people are hearing without an issue. Okay, if the wording is hard to read because of the very cheerful Christmas picture in the background, you tell me and I'll change the background, right? All right, so letters, emails, reports. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about what they have in common. Do you need to write it down? It might be useful. So yes, write it down. Because remember, you will need to review these things, right? We don't usually recall everything about something the first time we do it. You'll need to create a resource that you could come back to and review. It's not just for schoolwork, it's for anything we do. Some people might catch something the first time, no problem. Like say changing a tire on a car, the first time they do it, they might remember everything. Some of us might have to watch a YouTube tutorial, watch somebody do it, then try it ourselves, get help, then try it ourselves and be able to do it, right? So we want to have a resource we could come back to. So yes, write it down. All right, so these three things are generally similar. They have a lot of things in common. So the stuff on the left-hand side is what they have in common, right? Now, the letters we are focusing on are expository letters. So that means that they are giving information, right? So let me put that here. So where I have expository, right? They are giving information. That's the type of letter we are focusing on for summer. So that is really the letter for section 2 of the test, right? In the last section, where there's persuasive writing, CSEC has not said that they will give you a letter, but there are other types of letters where one has to persuade someone. So you might write a letter to the editor to try to persuade people to come fix potholes in your street, or to come take care of the stray dog problem, or something else, to complain about a neighbor that makes too much noise and you haven't been able to get them to quiet down, right? Letters to the editor would be persuasive. But we are doing letters that are expository, that are giving information. So they're not trying to persuade anyone necessarily. They're really just trying to tell them what happened in a situation. So I sort of jumped to number 2 there, right? Number 1 says they are usually formal. So letters for sure are formal, right? So, and reports are formal, right? But emails could be formal, or they could be informal. So if you're writing a formal email, that might be like to a teacher, a business, somewhere you're applying for a job, any of those things. And informal, those would be like to a classmate, right, or friend. Now that doesn't mean we are going to put LOL and emojis in our emails necessarily, right? It just means we might include a less formal greeting, and we might call the person by their first name, right? So let me just put the word more here, right? So picture it like a scale, and it's not an email is not the most informal type of writing that you will do for CTEC, but it is a little more informal than say a letter, perhaps, depending on who it's going to, right? Yes, someone familiar. All right. Third point here, they usually contain addresses. And for the letters and the reports, the format will be the street address. And so the emails, it will be an email address. Right? Fourth point, subject line. So all three of these, when you are writing them, you need to put in, or you need to be prepared to put in a subject line. That means a brief line that says what the thing will be about. So if you're writing an email to a friend about missed homework assignments, you might put as the subject, missed homework assignments. Or if you're writing an email to a company because you would like to apply for a job, you so post it on a website, you might put as a subject, job application from, and you put your name, John Smith, or whatever it is. Right? All right, I'm just going to change the background. So I have to come out of slideshow and you'll see the PowerPoint, and then I'll go back in a minute, right? So let me just change the background if anybody is having trouble seeing. Right. All right, so that might make it a little clearer. Okay. All right. Fourth, okay, so we just talked about subject line. Fifth things, whenever we're writing letters, emails, reports, we are trying to be as brief as possible. So some of you may like that. That means you don't have to try and fill up words to make a word limit. And honestly, for section 2, they don't usually come with a word limit, but you should anticipate that you're trying to write it as short as you can, as short as possible, right? So without leaving out anything important. So concise, nothing extra, don't repeat yourself, short paragraphs. So now by short paragraphs, I'm thinking 2 to 3 sentences. Oh boy. All right, this mouse pad is very sensitive. Okay. Right, so short paragraphs, I'm saying 2 to 3. Let me change that to 3 to 4 sentences, right? When we're writing essays, I tell people try to stick with a 6-sentence paragraph. But for letters, you could be shorter. You could go a little longer. But people, when in the context of the real world, when they're reading letters and emails, they usually don't have as much time. They're not sitting down to read it for fun. They want to get to the point and move on. Right? I put the word more by informal here on the emails. So by emails, there's formal / more informal, right? It's not the most informal thing you will write. That might be what you write to your friend that you know really well, but it's a little more informal than say what you might write to a teacher. Okay, so question in the chat from Christian about the word limits. So the word limits, yes, CSEC does give word limits, but not for section 2. I'm not really sure why that is. Right, section 2, the last few section 2 papers I have seen have not had word limits. If anybody feels they have one in front of them where they've seen a word limit, you could tell me and I'll double check, right? I added a few words to the PowerPoint. Are you all not seeing those? Okay, so let me try, maybe it's the screen share. Let me just change the screen share. They're not super important words, but I'd like to know why we're not seeing it. So let me try and change the screen share and maybe you'll see it. Okay, so some people are seeing it and some are not. All right, so now more people are seeing it. Okay, thanks, guys. Okay, I think Zoom just needed to be told again to share everything. All right, so these are what the 3 things have in common that I would see. Some of y'all have already done this topic in school or written these in school or even in real life. Is there anything else you think that they have in common that I might have left out and you want to suggest in the chat? Feel free. And I'll give everybody just a minute to add to their notes on this piece, since some of us are only now seeing the writing, right? Can I change the color? I could change the color for the next set, yes. I just can't change it right now. So just to go back over the markings, number 1, I just underlined formal for emphasis. Number 2, by expository, I wrote give information, because these things that we're writing are the expository versions of those things, and their purpose. Expository is just a fancy word to say give information, right? But CSEC uses the word expository, so we will use the word expository. There are other types of letters. Guys, I cannot change the color right now for the writing that is already there, but I will change it moving forward, right? So I'm talking through it so you could write as we go, right? All right. There are other types of letters that are not formal. Those might be letters to the editor. Those could be letters to friends. Those could be letters of invitation, would not quite be expository, right? Right. Yeah, okay, good. They have, someone is pointing out the way that they close off is similar. That's right. They have a similar format, the 3 of them, in a way. You start with the addresses, you have the introduction, a body, a conclusion, and then you have to close off with sincerely and your name. Yeah, that's true. All right, so I can change the color for this point if I write it in. So let me do that, right? So let's actually put that in. So 6, they all have a closing, right? And we will look at the example of that. But that's the sincerely and then your name, or the yours respectfully and your name, right? All right, going back to the blue parts that I had written in that some people are having trouble seeing. By number 5, where I have concise with short paragraphs, they are all concise. I have 3 to 4 sentences. Okay, yes, salutation. So just to number 6, I will add closing and salutation. This is in the opposite order it will occur in, right? But the dear whomever, so dear sir, dear Mr. Smith, dear Miss Johnson, whatever, that's the salutation, right? So in the letter, the order is actually inverted. Salutation first and closing at the end, right? All right, what else did I put in blue? In letters, reports, and emails, in the circles themselves, I put the word formal. And by emails, I put formal / more informal, right? And under formal, an example would be like to a teacher or a business. That's written in blue. And then under informal, to a classmate or a friend, that's written in blue, right? A date would be included. So for the letters and the reports, you would put a date. But for the email would handle itself, would put a date itself without you having to add it in. All right, so let's talk about the differences now. All right, so emails could sometimes be less formal. We already said that. Now, emails could also include attachments. Now, letters could do that too. Reports could do that too, right? But emails are probably more likely to have attachments than letters and reports in this day and age. Second thing, well, we also already said this. The type of letter we're looking at here is just one of the types of letters that exist in the world of possible letters, right? And then by reports, reports could be statistical reports, witness reports, accident reports that you may have to write. Right, so those are the main ones we will practice with. I'm going to add to this, if we have time, in the summer, we will also put in memos. Memos, that's an O, memos, okay. And also, okay, let me write this over neatly because it looks like memes. Memos, right? That's the account of what happens in a meeting. No, sorry, and minutes. That's not memos. Well, it could be an account of what happens in a meeting, but it could also be something that a company wants you to do. Minutes is what I was thinking of. Those are the accounts. That's the account of what happened in a meeting, right? And that could be considered kind of like a report format. So if we have time in the summer, we will look at those. All right, so good question. What does statistical mean? In a statistical report, CSEC would give you a table of statistics with columns and numbers that show some kind of information, and they would ask you to write a report about it. So you might pretend that the person you're writing the report for has not seen the table of statistics, and you would give them in words the information that the table is giving them in numbers. All right, so our class is scheduled to end at 1:30. If we finish before, we will end before, and I will try to give the last 5 to 10 minutes for any questions. We will also take a break, if we can, around 12:30. Yeah, all right, so minutes, to go back to memos and minutes. I'm not writing the definition right now, well, because space and because it will take time and because we may not get it right now, right? Memos are notes circulated within a company that might, it could do different things. It's just an official kind of communication. So it has to be brief and to the point, but it could be a memo about something that happened. It could be about a memo about a policy that needs to change. It could be a memo that's a reminder of a policy. Minutes are a summary of what happened in a meeting. Right, look, let me just put this in the chat so that it's clear, so that my handwriting doesn't confuse, sorry. Memos and minutes is what that says, right? This is a plus sign here, meaning and. All right, so I'm ready to change the slide. Anybody need more time? Let me know before I change it. Okay, so I'm giving a minute. All right, by number 5 on the left, concise with short paragraphs. This is 3 to 4 sentences. That's written there. All right, let me write it over. All right, so by concise, I mean, by short paragraphs, I mean 3 to 4 sentences. We don't want to go over that. You could have 2 if it's the introduction or the conclusion. You could have 2. Memos and minutes required for CXC. Would you have to write one for CXC? Okay, so the thing is, CXC just said reports. They said statistical reports. They said articles. They said a few things. They did not specifically say memos and minutes, but most teachers think that they could ask it, even though they didn't quite. They think because it's implied when one says reports. So that's why it's at the bottom of the list. So we don't think it's likely that CXC would ask it, but they could ask it. right? Just like they said they would ask this for statistical reports, but they haven't brought one yet in the past 4 years. All right, anybody still writing? If you need more time, you might need to take a screenshot and or come back to the recording and come back to this point, all right? So you can finish up any writing that you need. Okay, great. So I'm getting no's now for the still writing question. So we're going to move on, right? So I have to clear the screen and then we will move on. Okay, so this is our general format, right? And then we will do an example together. So we're looking at general formats first, and then we will go into an example together. So this is for the letter, but it could also be for the report. Just 1 second, let me skip ahead. Okay. All right. This is a general format that all three will follow, except this part will not be in an email, right? All right, so the first thing is the sender's address, right? So that's your address, and we'll do an example below. Now, I want you to note that we have skipped a line here, right? Oh boy. Just 1 line, right? And then we put the date, and the date format we are going to put is just like with the slashes, right? No, sorry, not with the slashes. So we could put 22 November, comma, 2022, right? Note again that we skip a line. Right? And then we put who is getting it. So we put the name of the person, the receiver's name. We put their title, their position. So name, we want their full name, right? So we might put John Smith. Their position. So if they are an administrative assistant, we put that. If they are the CEO, we put that. If they are the owner, we put that. That's the owner. Right? And then you put their address. So whatever the address is, number 11, Southern Main Road, Kirap, right? If you're sending a letter from Trinidad and it's going to Trinidad, you probably don't need to put in the word Trinidad, right? If the scenario they give you tells you it's going to somebody in the US or somewhere else, then put the country. The format is today in 2022 on the left side, right? So I've aligned everything on the left side. Long ago, maybe not so long ago, maybe 5 years ago or so, I don't know. Maybe 20 years ago, we would put this information on the right hand side. And for a little while we had an option, but nowadays we align everything on the left hand side, right? Is this block format? The example that I'm giving you is yes. Now, what is block format? Have we heard the term block format before? So I'm going to write it here. Sorry. Right. Block format. We are trying to use block format. Now I have space here, so I'm writing it here. You could write it underneath the example if you want, right? Block format. That means, let me check the chat. So some of y'all have responded. I'm asking if y'all have heard it before. Yeah, align everything on the left and do not indent. Correct. All right. So a line on the left, flush against the margin. And again. All right. Okay, so first thing for block format, align left. This is left for not left. All right, align left and do not indent. Right? Okay, and one more thing in between, and this might be a given, y'all might just take this for granted. Skip lines between paragraphs. Because if I am aligning left and I'm not indenting, and I don't skip lines in between my paragraphs, what will happen? I'll just end up with a big chunk of text. And that will not help the reader understand what I'm trying to say. They'll just see a big chunk of text, right? Think about when you're, all right, I'm seeing some questions in the chat about the address. I'll come to that just now, right? When you are reading a text message, think about that. And you, it's a long text message and it has no paragraphs. Do you enjoy reading those? Okay, one more line, one more skipping of a line here, right? Skip one line again, right? Now here you have, I have skipped a line. I've skipped a line here. And I have skipped a line here. Okay, but these two lines are optional for skipping. If you skip a line, you won't get it wrong. And if you don't skip a line, you won't get it wrong either. Okay, but up above, these are very important skippings. You need to skip that line here and here and here, right? But then now we get into the body of the letter. So I created a little space to help it look organized, but you don't need to, right? And also again, I've skipped a line here, right? Because again, it's block format. Skip. Here again, skip. Okay, and I skipped here, but if you don't, that's okay. To keep it consistent though, so that it all looks the same, we skipped a line. Is there a space between the receiver's address and the greeting? Yes, so skip a line here, right? Between the receiver's address and their server madam. All right, so let me just address some things in the chat. Kristen, I'm not sure what you mean by when you say key. Yes, I'm hoping you use this as a pattern to keep the information in your stuff organized, right? For the address, does the name of the location go under, for example? Yeah, so you could put, if it's a company, you could, you would probably put that here between position and address. Right, so if there is a company name, you would put it here. I don't have space to write it in, but you guys could write it in, right? You do not have to post it letter when we are done. If you want to try as a real life exercise to post a letter, you could pick a real life context where you need to actually write a letter and do it, right? Can the subject be written under the greeting? It should be centered. So just like I've centered it here, we should center this subject line. Right, so the idea is we're laying out things so the eye could just fall on them and it would make sense immediately. Right, brief subject line with important words capitalized. So if you are running a business and you're too busy to read this letter, you could decide from the subject, do I need to read it or not? No, my business will not close its doors if I don't read it. Okay, cool, move on. Or yes, I need to read it. The tax man is coming to collect taxes tomorrow. I need to see what he's saying. Okay, let me read it, right? But the subject line needs to be in the middle. Another thing to note is the capitalization of the subject line. So we make the important letters capital. So the B, the S, the L, all of the nouns and important adjectives, but the preposition, not so important, so he gets a common W. Then the I, the W, the C, capital letters again, right? All right, so then underneath we have some text saying how we will lay out the letter. And what does the text say? Well, for the introduction, you need to say who you are and why you are writing. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you tell the person your name. If you are writing to a stranger, okay, 1 second, let me just adjust something in the chat. Would marks be deducted if you don't skip lines to the paragraph? For the paragraph, if you are writing in block format, a couple marks might be deducted, right? And before I change the slide, but when I clear the writing, I'll show you why. Because if you lump everything together, you don't skip lines, it looks like you've written one paragraph and you don't know how to organize your thoughts. Paragraphs are very important when you're writing anything. Essay, letter, story, text message to your friend, email. Paragraphs are very important, right? Okay, so let's go back to the introduction. Who you are, but not necessarily, my name is Michelle Ramlagan and I'm writing to inform you about a situation that occurred in your grocery last week, Thursday, right? Because the person doesn't know who the name is not going to ring any bells for them. They're not going to know why they should care, right? But if you say, I am a customer, that is saying who you are. Who are you? I'm a customer. Who are you? I'm an applicant. I would like to be considered for a position. Who are you? I provide the service of landscaping and I would like to offer my services to you for the price of however much, right? So who you are, but in a way that will matter to the person reading the letter. We are important to ourselves, but we are not necessarily important to everybody else in the world, right? So we have to tell them what matters to them. They might care about your relationship to the company. They might care about the service you offer. So say who you are in terms of that, right? All right, why are you writing? So generally, what is your purpose? Are you writing to compliment them on the way somebody handled a situation? Are you writing to complain? Are you writing to inform? Well, probably to inform, but in complaining, you could be informing too. Right? So we will try to put in a verb that says why we are writing. And then we want to try, the last thing that's listed in the instruction is to give an idea of how you have the rest of the letter organized. Or the rest of the report or the rest of the email, right? Now that is a very hard thing to do because these are short pieces of writing, but we will try. And the idea is just to say, perhaps that the following is an account of what took place, or the following is, the following includes the reasons why I think I would be a excellent candidate for this job. We'll do examples, right? I'm just explaining right now what we mean by that. I hope we're writing while I'm talking so we can move on once we get to the end of this, right? All right, so then body or important ideas. We're trying to organize the body into 2 to 3 short paragraphs of a few sentences each. So above we said 3 to 4 or even 2 to 4 sentences. Sentences are not lines, remember that, right? I'm seeing your question about the difference between block format and other formats, and I'll get to it just now, right? All right. And then after the body, conclusion, right? So if I've put any attachments in my letter, so for example, if it's an email and I include pictures, I might say that. If it's a job application letter and I am attaching my CV or my resume, I might say that. And in conclusion too, we need to try and say what we want them to do. So do we want them to contact us to discuss the situation further? Do we want them to address a matter within the company? we need to say that, right? And we could also put in our contact information. If you have any further questions, I can be reached at, and you put a number or you put an email, right? At the very end, we put our closing. So we say sincerely, or we say respectfully. If it's a letter or a report, you put your signature, and then after that, you put your name in separate block letters, right? All right, so there are questions in the chat about block format versus indented. So I want to address those, but I would like to clear the screen of the writing. Can I do that, or is anybody still taking notes of what we added in? If anybody's still taking notes, you need to tell me, right? Okay, thanks, guys. So I'm going to clear the screen. All right, and I'm going back to the does the date have to be the date you write it or the day you send it? Find one that is close. Hopefully you will send a letter the day you write it, right? Now, if one is functioning in a normal company where you send a letter close to when you write it, it could be the date that you write it. So you wrote it today and you send it tomorrow. You wrote it Sunday, you might put Monday's date instead and you send it Monday, right? Now, let's say you were in a company that takes a really long time to approve letters, like, I don't know, a government agency, or where there's a lot of approvals it has to go through, right? Any company like that. It's possible it might take a whole week for a letter to get approved before it's sent out. So then you might need to change the date to the date sent it out, right? So it depends. When you are writing for CSEC, just put a date. Does the name have to be a real name? No, but please use a believable one. Don't put like Dragon Z something. Don't put like a cartoon name or anything, right? All right, so I'm just minimizing the chat to discuss format, the indenting versus, so I won't see your comments as yet, right? So everybody, let's try. So we had said we would put in the company name here, if there is one. So let me type that in. All right, now we said block format is like we have on the screen. This is block format. Everything is flush against the margin. Everything is, there's a skipped line. So to illustrate it further, let's say the sentence continued, just to illustrate what that would mean for the paragraph, right? Right. So this paragraph is now 2 lines long. And here again, right? That paragraph goes on there. And again, right. So look, you could see that the point is when the paragraph line goes over, you skip in between. So there's a blank space in between, right? Let me zoom in a little bit. Right? So block format, I do not indent for the new paragraph. I skip a line instead. Now, the other way that some of us use with essays is we indent. You go like this. Wait, no, not that, because that's Google Slides. All right, so you might move in. If you type in, it would be tab. You would use tab, but I don't, can I use tab? Yeah, okay, I can use tab here, right? And then, so now, just a second, right? So I've indented for the first paragraph. I'm going to indent for the others. Uh-oh. Right. So I've indented for the second paragraph. And now I'm going to indent for the third. Right? So this is the other way that the body could look. So I will not skip lines, but instead I will indent to show where the paragraph ends and a new one begins. So I will indent here to show that a new one has started. I'll indent here to show a new one started. I'll indent here to show a new one started, right? So this is the second option for formatting. You could indent, right? And this is what most of us do when we write essays. We don't skip lines, we just indent. Everybody clear on that? On what the two formats are that are possible? Anybody confused still? Tell me. All right, if you're still confused, tell me, right? All right, so I'm putting it back to block format. Which one does CXC prefer? They have not said. Personally, for letters and emails and reports, I just, in a real life context, I prefer block format, right? And I think most people prefer block format. But CXC, once you have clear paragraphs, I don't think, and you are consistent, so you don't start with block and then go to indent, right? Then it's fine. They don't care. They just want to know that you could write a paragraph and be consistent with what you do. So if one way is confusing for you, then don't use it. Use the way that is easier for you to remember, right? All right, and by closing, I just want to draw to our attention that we would close with something like respectfully, right? Or sincerely, and you put a comma and then you continue, right? If you are closing with two words, the second word needs to be a common letter. So if you're saying yours respectfully, that R needs to be a common letter. Yes, if you're saying yours truly, that T needs to be a common letter. If you cannot remember to make the second word common, then just don't use it. Just use respectfully or truly or faithfully or yours, just use one word, right? But this must be a common R. It must not be a capital R, right? That's wrong. It needs to be a common R. Okay, any questions at this point? Anything anybody want me to go over in relation to this? All right, I want to go ahead to the next slide, right? Now note that the conclusion for a letter, we do not recap everything we just talked about because it's so short. How do you get your signature online? In an email, you don't necessarily need to put in your signature, right? Just like in an email, you don't necessarily need to put in these things. Okay, we will do email. We will look at the email example a little later on. Right? A few slides down, we will look at it. Does the name have to be in block letters? No, you could write it like just a capital M. Let me use John Smith here since he's been starring in my presentation. Right? Some people for signature, and this is for a real life situation, right? They will write John Smith and they will put it in a different font. So they'll put it in like Lucida handwriting or something, Lucida, some curly font, but I will just italicize it now to make it look like handwriting, right? Yeah, if you have a picture of it somewhere, you copy and paste it, or if you're using a tablet, you could write it in, right? Or in an email, you don't need to write it at all. You would just put respectfully and a name. Why do we always use John Smith? Well, because it's two very common names, and I'm fairly sure nobody in the class is named John Smith, so I could use it. Right, so I don't want to use a name like, say, Harry Potter or Vin Diesel or Orlando Bloom, or, you know, I want to use a people name, not a celebrity name. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, which is our activity. All right, here is Santa Claus to help us with our Christmas theme, but let me change the background so that it's easier to read. Okay, so we have an activity, but the activity has 3 parts. And we will take our 5-minute break after we go through what the activity is, right? When we come back, we might start it. So you purchased an item from a grocery store that turned out to be expired. Now, this is based on a past paper question, right? When you took it back, the representative would not issue a refund, nor would they replace the product. The first activity is write a letter to the manager complaining about the situation. Second activity, write an email to the National Customer Service Bureau advising them of the situation. But this is an email this time, right? Third activity, as a grocery employee who handled the complaints mentioned in the scenario above, write a report of the incident, but one that will not get us fired, right? So yes, let's jot down what the activity is, and then let us head up the letter, and then we will go into break, right? All right, so I'm just muting myself for a few minutes to give you a chance to write down the scenario and the activities. Then, yeah, the general format was a letter and a report. A little less so, the general format we did just now, right, was letter and a report, a little less so for an email. We have email later on in the slide. These are activities we are doing together, right? I'm not assigning this for homework. We're doing this together. Well, the last one, I think I might ask you to do for homework, maybe. Or maybe it's the second one. I'm not sure. But I know I do have something that I ask you to do for homework in here. But we are doing these together. Right, so we will get to email in a couple slides. So right now we're copying down what the activity is, and then we are going to do the examples together, right? So I'm muting myself for a couple minutes, and then we want to at least head up the addresses for the first one, and then we will take a 5-minute break, right? All right, guys, how we doing? One person is done. You got, I think you got more than 2 minutes there. Anybody still writing? Okay, more people are done. Good. So let's just do the heading up for the letter, and then we can take a short break to just try and wake ourselves up, get some coffee. We do not have time for a power nap. All right, so I'll come back to it, right? I'll come back to it during the break time if anybody still needs time. But let's do the next thing so that we can all take a break if we need to. No, okay, go on in your own direction. Okay, here is the format for an email, but let's start the letter first. I'm looking for my blank slide where we are going to write. Okay, so let's write here. Okay, so this is our sample letter, right? We just change the heading. All right, sample letter. Okay, so from what you remember, what you took down, what's the first thing we need to write in a letter? If we write it, so we write in a letter to a company to complain. What's the first thing we need to write? The sender's address, right? So we're not putting our name, but we are putting our address, right? So our name is, sorry, our name is John Smith, but we're not putting that in. We're putting in our address. So let's pretend we live, okay, what is going on my cursor here? Okay, right. So I need to put the numbers to 25 or 24. Southern Main Road. I think I indented here accidentally. Right, and let's put Carney. Right, but you could, I mean, you could put any other address you want. I'm just making my address 2 lines long. Now I'm not skipping a line, but because of the spacing, it looks like there's a little space there, but I'm not skipping a line. The regular shortcuts don't work in Google Slides, so they randomly change things here. All right, so now I am skipping a line, right? But between Main Road and Carney, I did not skip a line. Now, I also did not put in a comma here, but you could put in a comma after the different elements in the address, but I chose not to. Whichever way you do it, you just have to be consistent. So if you put a comma here, you put a comma for all the others. If you don't put a comma, then don't put a comma at all. All right, so date. How am I going to write the date? Do I want to take a try at writing the date in the chat? So I skipped the line, and now I have to write the date. How do I write the date? All right, good. Right, so you all have the date down fine. Now, something else I didn't do in the presentation, but you could do it and it would be correct, is you could put the RD. So you can say 23rd July, 2022, right? But I left out the RD, right? Why? Because when you are writing formally, you do not put in abbreviations, and it's a formal letter, so I'm leaving it out, right? But it wouldn't be wrong if you put it in, right? All right, so I'm skipping a line again. And now what do I have to write? Yeah, all right, so the receiver's name. All right, so Mr. Jeremiah Smith. Okay. Then what? After his name comes what? The position, right? So let's pretend he's the CEO. So I can write CEO, but I need to put it in capital letters. Or if I, well, remember Central Executive Officer is what CEO stands for, right? but I'll leave it as CEO. Okay. So we have his position, then we have his address. Right now, there was something else we added in. Remember that I didn't have in the original, and somebody mentioned in the chat, and I said, yes, you could put it here. What was the thing we put in? The company name. All right, so if I say Better Cost Supermarket, because remember I'm writing a letter of complaint. I don't know if I think I'm moving in a space here unintentionally, right? But everything is supposed to be flush against the margin. Okay, so CEO Better Cost Supermarket, and I'm putting the address now. Am I skipping a line to put CEO? No, I'm putting it in its own line, right? So I hit enter. Well, I had to hit shift and enter to keep from skipping a line, but it looks like there's some space. All right, so after the name of the supermarket, we are writing where they are located. So I don't know, 12 Eastern Main Road. And I'm gonna put them in Tunapuna. Right? So it's going from Trinidad to Trinidad. So I am not necessarily going to put in the word Trinidad because, well, it's in Trinidad. All right, once I get here, what do? Can I put real companies' names? I could. I thought about putting low cost, but I didn't. 1 second, my PowerPoint is momentarily possessed. Okay, I think it's back to normal now. Right. Dear Sir or Madam. So now I skip a line again. And I will put Dear Sir. Well, I agree, it's Sir, because it's Mr. Smith, it's Mr. Jeremiah Smith. If I didn't know his name, and if I didn't know if the person was male or female, so let's say I just knew I was writing to CEO and I don't know who it is, which is a possibility, then I would put Dear Sir or Madam. Right? So let me leave this as the example in case you need it later on. It seems like a harder example. Yeah, I could put Dear Mr. Smith if I know the person's name is Jeremiah Smith. Correct. If you don't know if it's Dear Sir or Madam, you could put to whom it may concern. If you don't know who you're writing it to. Right. So the next thing is the subject line. So I'm going to put a comma here. Sometimes you could also put a colon. In real life, you could put a colon. For CSEC, we will just put a comma, right? So I've hit enter. And I need to go to the middle of the line, roughly. Okay, what was the subject? What was my letter going to be about again? In the activity, what does it say I'm writing about? Right, item, expired goods, complaint, right, expired item, right. So what's the bigger issue? The bigger issue is complaints about expired item, maybe, right? Or complaints about complaints about expired item. I don't want to just say complaints about shopping or complaints about the problem, because then what's the problem? Did I buy an expired item? Did I slip on the wet floor? Did I have a terrible encounter with a cashier? It's not clear, right? We want to try and, even though we still being general, we want to say what the issue is. Is this a letter of complaint? Yes, it is technically, but the main objective is to give information about what happened and not to make anybody feel bad. We're not complaining to make somebody cry or get fired, right? So it's still an expository letter. So it's not going to appeal to emotions. It's really just trying to give information to try and have a situation resolved, right? So yes, it's a letter of complaint, but it's also an expository letter, meaning a letter to give information, right? All right. So my subject line is going to be complaints about expired item, right? So the main words are in with capital letters, but the about is a less important word because it's just a preposition. So he has a common A, right? Or she has a common A, whatever. All right, so let's take down the heading and then let's take a 5-minute break. So let's say it will be 12:40 by the time we're done with this, because you will probably write in the whole time, right? So in 5 minutes at 12:45, we will start back, right? So I'm leaving this screen up for 1 more minute, and then I'm going back to the previous screen. So when you come back, before we have started, you could finish taking down the activity if you didn't, right? Right, but definitely within 24 hours, you should get it, right? All right, so we're back to our letter. Oh, okay, I had actually previously done this format, which I forgot about. But this is basically the same thing that we wrote just now, right? But except plus a Santa Claus. So let's take Santa and let's take him with us to the one we are doing together. Come here, Santa. Right? Okay, great. So Santa's been relocated. Here we are. All right. So complaints about expired item, right? All right. So what item do we want to have had expire? Oh, wow. All right. So I see corned beef, milk, kiss bread. We're getting quite a few votes for milk, poultry product, cake, milk. Okay, lots of milk. Milk seems to be the winner. All right, let's go with milk, right? Since most people have actually typed milk. Yeah, okay, so to be clear, Santa Claus is not meant to be part of the letter. We're just using him to make our Saturday a little happier. All right, so what was supposed to go in the first paragraph again? Who I am, right? But they don't care about my name, right? So I'm not going to put John Smith. Who I am, right? So the first paragraph is the introduction, but what is going into it? Remember what we said? Go back to your notes and check. Right, so I am a customer, good, and unhappy customer, very good, guys. So, dear sir, madam, I am a customer of better cost supermarket, or you could write of your grocery store if you want, who purchased, remember I have to say why I'm writing, right? Okay, so I'm writing to complain, or I am writing to make you aware of an issue concerning an expired pack of milk of Nestle full cream milk that was sold to me last week, right? Or whenever. Let me leave out it. I'm going to leave out the last week, because if I think about it and I have to write what the order of what is coming next, right? If I think about it and lower down, I want to say when the exact date, then that would be a little repetitive. So let me leave that part out, right? So it was sold to me the following details: my difficult experience when I try to return it. Right? Well, if I say that I purchased, then I would use purchase, right? But I said that was sold to me because, well, from a practical standpoint, I want it to seem like it's their fault. So instead of saying that I purchased, because then I did that action, me, I said that they sold to me. Then I'm emphasizing there's something they did. They had it for sale. They shouldn't have an expired product for sale, right? So that's just what is behind my choosing sold to me rather than that I purchased, right? All right, so this last sentence is where I'm pointing to what will come below. Is the last sentence missing a verb? The following details my difficult experience when I try to return it. Is there a verb in this sentence? Details. Yeah, okay, so try goes with I, but that's not the main verb because when I try to return it, I cannot have that as a full sentence, right? So the details is the main verb. So the following, meaning the paragraphs that come below, the paragraphs detail my difficult experience, but the following details, right? So it's this is okay. If I want to, I could say the following are the details considering my difficult experience, right? But details is the main verb here. All right. So now let's see what happens. So last week, Thursday, I visited, I'm just recounting what happened, right? I visited your store and on the Eastern Main Road. Well, okay, no, it's already in the address, so I don't need to say that back, right? In order to make my weekly groceries or my weekly grocery trip, as I usually do. I shouldn't say to make my groceries because that is a very informal Trinidadian expression. So I should say maybe to buy my groceries, or I could make a trip, because to make a trip is standard English. So to make my weekly grocery trip, as I usually do, I purchased some milk, which was on sale, along with my other items, right? When, well, upon arriving home, or upon unpacking the groceries, my, well, I already said purchases. I didn't say groceries yet, right? So I want to vary the vocabulary. Do I have to put the actual date instead of last week, Thursday? You could. And the reason I'm taking the chance to just put Thursday is because up above, I have 23rd July. So if somebody wanted to know the actual date, they could count backwards and get the actual dates, right? So I didn't say something like last week or 2 weeks ago or anything like that. Something is happening with my cursor that is making my paragraphs indent, but that's not my intention, right? Everything should be flush against the margin here. All right. So if I put last week Thursday, what was the date last week Thursday? Today's the 23rd. Oh, now it's today's Saturday, so it's actually a week ago. So let me take out last week because I really mean 2 days ago. So if I want to put a date, I would say last Thursday, 21st July. And yeah, I could put in 2022, but it would sound a little bit awkward. So I'm going to leave it out. Right? It was not my intention to indent when I started the body. It was just my intention to skip a line between complaint and this, right? All right, so last Thursday, 21st July, I visited your store in order to make my groceries as usual. Yeah. Okay, so let me make this bold and let me zoom in a bit or zoom out a bit. Right? All right. Okay, yes, Darrell is pointing out I don't need to have last. I could just say on Thursday, 21st July. Yeah, I could do that, right? I think if I say last as well, it shouldn't cause a problem because it is the last Thursday that went by, right? But since it is really 2 days ago, I could just say on Thursday, 21st July, right? Or I can say 2 days ago on Thursday, 20. So you have options. Whichever sounds best to you, whichever you're most comfortable with, you could choose, right? All right, so upon unpacking my groceries, did I start back the recording? Yes. Okay. Upon unpacking my groceries, I noticed that the milk was expired by approximately 1 week, right? Or I could say there are different ways I could say it, right? I could say the milk had expired 2 weeks previously, or the milk was already expired, or the milk had expired in June, or the expiration date of the milk was passed, right? Just in a way that is grammatically correct. Last year seems like it would be a stretch of the imagination that the grocery would have milk on the shelf for a whole extra 6 months. Right? 3 months expiration for milk seems a bit long. I think like a couple weeks, maybe, right? But I don't, you know, if the scenario doesn't tell you how long the thing was expired for, they can't really take off marks for it if it's not too extreme or excessive, right? All right. Milk was expired by approximately 1 week, right? Okay, so now I'm going to get into what I did next. So remember that one of the challenges, one of the things we're trying to do is organize our ideas, organize our paragraphs in a way that makes sense, right? So if one paragraph is on the details of buying the milk, and how many sentences do I have? I have 1, 2, 3 sentences. So that's fine for a letter, not for an essay, but for a letter is okay, right? So I promptly return to the store. Right? With my receipt and the expired product, right? I asked to speak with a manager, and was, so I could decide either now I had to make sure the manager is not the person I'm writing to, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that you're writing to the person that you spoke to. So either if it was the CEO I asked to speak with, then maybe they redirected me to the cashier, or if it was a manager I asked to speak with and the person wasn't available to handle the issue. Sorry, PowerPoint is on its own beat there, right? But just make sure this matches with whatever you put in the address, right? So I asked to speak with a manager and was directed to Mr. or Mrs. We put Mrs. I was gonna write Thomas Ali as the name, so okay, Mr. because I can't think of a girl name now, right? So Mr. Thomas Ali. Oh, in the activity it says I'm writing to the manager. Okay, that is important. All right, so then I have to change this. That is important. Thank you, Shane. If in the activity it says manager, then I have to put manager there, or I will be throwing away marks, right? So I asked to speak with a manager, but was directed to Mr. Thomas Ali, right? a customer or the assistant manager, let me see, that's easy to remember, right? But the point is, I don't want to be speaking to the manager and then writing to the manager too. I'll get nowhere, right? The assistant manager or the head cashier or the supervisor or somebody who is below manager, right? All right. Mr. Ali, now how do we want Mr. Ali to approach the problem? Do we want him to be polite or do we want him to be rude? Does it make sense he would be polite or rude? If we're writing a complaint, we think he might be rude. Most of us think he might be rude. Yeah. Okay. So Mr. Ali, very rudely informed me that there would be no refund, or that no refund was possible, or that store policy does not allow for a refund. The store also would not exchange the product, right? Okay. So what happens then? Do we leave it? Is that the end of it? So maybe they ask us to leave, right? So further, I was asked to leave, right? Okay, so now we get to the last paragraph. So we've described the situation. We mentioned what the letter was going to be about. We described our actions in the store. We described what happened when we went back to try and get redress. So now what do we want the manager to do? If this were our real life situation, what would we want? All right, so yes, I could make the side bigger. It's this small because I'm having us do it together instead of just showing you the example, right? Okay, we want a refund and we want or an exchange and we want an apology. Okay, nice. All right. Yeah, okay. How could they still ask you to leave? Well, very nicely, they could say, I'm sorry, but could you please leave? This is we don't have time to deal with this matter. I mean, you know, in real life, they may not, but it could happen. When you go to complain somewhere, they could ask you to leave. This is, we sound like a Karen. What are you talking about? That is you know how much a liter of milk costs? A liter costs $14. That is $14 of milk plus the time I took to come down to the grocery store to have to exchange this milk. That's money spent in gas. Okay, so now you get the idea about why they might ask me to leave, right? Now, as a teacher, I know that I have as a follow-up activity, somebody has to write a report from the store's perspective. So it could be that when I came in, I was kind of belligerent, meaning angry, and they had to ask me to leave, right? So I'm leaving that line in there because it might be useful later on. All right. Oh, so some of y'all would have just let the $14 slide. I see how it is. All right, I need to make the screen smaller again just to put in the last paragraph, and then I'll make it bigger again first to finish writing, right? Right, so I was asking you all to think about what we wanted to be the outcome. Now we are doing a liter of milk, but I'll tell you from real life experience, I have bought sometimes cheese in the grocery store by my house when it's buy one, get one free. And I understand it's buy one, get one free because it's close to the expiration date and you don't want it to, they don't want it to expire. And it's my intention to just put it in the freezer so it will not spoil. And when I am ready, take it out and use it. But I have bought cheese in that buy one, get one free. And then you know what the company does? They tape it together so you can't see the expiration dates, right? But in theory, I know it will expire soon. And then when I bring it home, it actually is already spoiled, right? Even though it's not past the expiration date yet. So I could see how somebody would go back to the grocery to talk to them about expiration dates, right? I could see it happen. Maybe not for $14 worth of milk, but because it's usually foreign cheese that happens with. So one piece might be $40, and you think, okay, well, if I buy one, I get one free, then I'm not really paying. I'm paying $20 a piece, so it's okay. But then I could be more. It could be mozzarella, the block of mozzarella could be more. It's like 60, 70. Yeah. Somebody put extra foods in the chat. Don't slander my beloved grocery store. This didn't happen with extra foods. This happened with a grocery store closer to my house that I will not say the name of. Extra foods would never do such a thing. Never. All right. So I'm going back to, I really do love extra foods. I do. I'm going back to this smaller screen for a bit just to finish off the letter, and then we'll make it big again and you can finish writing it down, right? All right. So I would like to request a phone call at your earliest convenience, right? To resolve this matter. I can be reached by phone, by telephone at, and you put a number, but not your real number, 555-5555. I would like to discuss the possibility of a refund or exchange, right? Of the product, which I think is only fair. Okay, so now here is a paragraph with 2 sentences. It's the, nope, that's 3. That's 3 sentences. Okay, never mind. I was going to say the conclusion had, but the intro and the conclusion, you know, if they have 2 sentences, not a big deal, right? All right, and then I'm closing off the letter. So sorry, writing is getting smaller. Regards, well, let me put the 2 words so we can have it. Yours respectfully, right? And I'm putting, so I wrote, I didn't put a name, so John Smith, right? All right. Yeah, one time Extra Foods did scan an item for me twice by accident. So mistakes do happen. I know that nobody is perfect. I can't see the, oh, I've made the screen too small. I can't see the slideshow option. So let me, right, here we go. Okay, so it should be big. It should be bigger now, right? So no grocery store is perfect, but my beloved Extra Foods would never sell an expired product. I know that. And Better Cost Supermarket is not an actual supermarket. Yeah. Okay. All right. Can we make this out? Do I need to make the font bigger? Can I make the font bigger? Yes. PowerPoint has its own plan. All right, so I have to just do a little shifting around. We'll just take a little minute here. Don't blame Santa Claus, guys. It's not Santa Claus's fault. All right, I think this might be the best I could do with the font. But the font really was tiny. Okay, I think this should be better now, right? Okay, if there's anything anybody can't see, let me know in the chat, right? Oh, you know, I didn't even think of putting in the Grinch. I should have looked for pictures of the Grinch. It was 24 Southern Main Road before. It might have been, and I exited 2 by accident. So 24 for whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just a made up address. But we do want a relatively normal street name. Yeah, some teachers do use the phrase, and you could too. I am writing to tell you about, or I'm writing to inform you, right? That could also be a useful name to use, not use name, sorry, phrase to use, right? So I'm just leaving the screen up now for people to just finish taking down the example of the letter. Oh, they say don't use it. Some just say don't use it. You know, teachers say a lot of things, we do. We like to say, for example, don't conclude by saying in conclusion. And our reasoning is that everybody says that. So we might also say, some people may also not like the phrase, I'm writing to inform you, or I'm writing to tell you about, because we may feel like a lot of people use it. But my personal feeling is, if it does the job and it will keep you from getting writer's block, and that's all you could think of, just use it. Because if you don't have a phrase like that, you will lose many more marks than if you just use a phrase that's not so unique, right? Yeah, if you run out of space at the bottom of your page, you could put the yours respectfully on the other page. Can you use literary devices for this? Good question. So since this is an expository letter, we are not supposed to do too much appealing to emotions, right? So we probably should not use literary devices. So we didn't talk about how, oh my God, I gave the milk to my child and it made my child sick. And I really think you need to train your managers better, because you cannot be treating people this way. And I will go to the Customer Service Bureau of Trinidad and Tobago and report you. We didn't put in all that. We try to keep the tone fairly straightforward and serious, right? Because the letter for this section in the exam is about giving information, right? You are giving information in order to complain, but we don't want to get carried away with feelings, because if I carry on like that, then people might suspect that something is not quite balanced with me emotionally, right? Do teachers get annoyed from reading the same thing over and over? I suppose they might. But remember that ultimately we are preparing for a CSEC examiner, and they just want to see that you could write grammatically correct sentences in paragraphs. So they don't care if you use the same thing, the same phrase, I'm writing to inform you, etc. Can you put the conversation in that you had with the employee? It might be a little too much for this letter. If it is relevant, and if the scenario tells you, because remember, you will be given a scenario and asked to write something in response to it. So if the scenario says, summarize the conversation you had with the assistant manager or whatever, then yes, by all means, summarize it. But putting any conversation for this letter would be probably too much. Okay, any other questions pertaining to the letter? Okay, there was a question, sorry, somebody put in the chat that I want to address, but it moved up. What if the manager tries to sue you? Well, he wouldn't have much of a case because you have expired milk on a receipt. That wasn't the thing, wait, hold on. Oh, okay, yeah. So I'm not looking for, we're not putting any emotions in the letter. If someone had started to cry, let's say in the scenario, you go to the grocery and you talk to the manager and Mr. Thomas Ali broke down in tears, you could mention in your summary of the situation. So the store would not exchange the product and the manager started to cry, right? You could mention it. You just mentioned any facts. The person cried, right? All right. So anybody still copying down the example of the letter, or can we move on? All right. So okay, so I have a couple of people still writing. So I'm going to give it 2 more minutes at the most, and then you'll need to either take a screenshot or come back to it, right? And I'm watching the time already, it's 1:17. So we might have to wrap up after this, right? All right, so 1 more minute because most people are finished. All right, so 1 more minute, and then we're going to just wrap up for today. Look at the homework. I'll go over where you could get the recording and when, and yeah, we'll continue next week, right? Okay, so 1 more minute on this slide, and then we're moving on to the homework, right? All right, so let's look at the homework. So I have to change the screen. Okay. Yeah, so was somebody asked in chat if they could use the hashtag with the number. And it's just, people originally, this tic-tac-toe thing is a number sign. It is not a hashtag. I don't know if the dictionary now calls it a hashtag, but to us old people, it is a number sign. Or on the telephone keyboard thing, it would be called a pound sign, I guess, right? But yeah, you could use that. You could use that for the number, but it doesn't matter. You leave it out too, right? Leave in the address. Okay, so let's just go back over the relevant slides that we looked at today. So this was our beautiful Christmas tree opening. And then we went over what the 3 things have in common, what are the differences. We looked at a general format for our letter. Now let me put this into the heading, right? If you took it down, you could go back for letter and report, right? You can just put that into your notes because you would have taken this down, right? So if you took down the heading, this is how our letter and report more or less will be organized. Then we looked at this activity. It's a 3-part activity, right? Write a letter to the manager, then an email to the National Customer Service Bureau, which we will do next week. And then as the grocery employee, we will do a report of the incident, right? because maybe customer service called your boss and your boss wants to know, well, what to you, why this happened? Right. Pound, not pound. The hashtag sign is also a number sign, and it's also called a pound sign, P-O-U-N-D. If you'll ever call an automated phone number, well, a number with automated instructions, they might talk about the pound sign. All right, so this we ended up not using, so let's take that out. Right, here is our sample letter. Okay, and this is as far as we've got. So next week, depending on how much time we have this format of an email to go over with Santa Claus here. We also have another practice. Okay, so this was the practice that I wanted you to do for homework. So let me move it up. Right, and let me change the background so it's easier to read. I think the only Christmassy thing this presentation is holding on to is Santa Claus. But he's not giving up. There he is. Right, yeah, when you put it in a phone card, it tells you pound sign. All right, so you're applying for a job as an administrative assistant. Let me make this bigger. This is your homework assignment, right? But if you don't want to be an administrative assistant, great. Apply for any job that you want. You want to be a mechanic, you want to be an engineer, you want to be a CEO, no problem. You could choose a job title, no problem, right? At a company, and you could choose the company. It doesn't have to be a local company, it could be a foreign company, it could be any company, right? But make this a practical example. So make it, not Ministry of Magic, but it could be Tesla Industries. So a real company with real jobs, please. So we could actually practice. No, I have to take it back. If you want to be Ministry of Magic and you want to be an Aurora, go ahead. That's fine. Write a letter expressing your interest. So why do you want to be hired, and outlining the reasons you think will make you a good fit for the company. Right now, I'm going to put this link to the form in the chat. Okay, so I've created a Google form where you can submit your answers. Right, so you're pretending basically that you're applying for a job. Is it an unsolicited letter, meaning like you just randomly sending in your resume? You could decide, that would be fine. If you want to pretend that you're responding to an ad that you saw somewhere, that would be okay too, right? Okay, so you are pretending that you're applying for a job, and so you have to name the job and you have to name the company, but you could choose those. I'm suggesting administrative assistant because it's an entry-level job that anybody, once they're done with CXC, could apply for, depending on the company, right? Or even if they are not done with CXC, they can apply for it and presumably, conceivably get called for an interview, right? So write a letter expressing your interest, outline the reasons you think will make you a good fit, and then you submit in your responses on this form. So remember, the letter is still supposed to be brief, but organized. When to submit? Whenever you can. You could try to do it. When I get it, I will try to respond to it, right? So if you submit right before class next week, then obviously I will not be able to respond to it right then, right? All right, so I'm going to send back the link now, put the request. Okay, so this is for people who would like the extra practice of actually trying a letter. Sorry, here we go again. All right, so let me show you what the form will look like. It is going to ask you for an email address. Right, so you'll see practice letter, submit your letter below. Well, it thinks that I am, because I'm on a different computer, not mine. It will ask you for your email address, right? Your name on your form. Just as if you're an adult, you'll put adult. And this is to help reduce spam. Okay. Does it have a due date? No, but remember that if you send it too close to class time, you won't get feedback before class, right? And this is the question again, the untitled question here, which I'll delete, right? All right, so if you cannot get the link from the chat, what will happen is when the video is posted on YouTube, the link will be put below the video in the chat, right? Or when the link is posted on the school website, the link will be put below the video, right? And you can get it that way. Okay, so in the chat, just a reminder to everybody that you're going to get a video, you will check iLoveLessons. You have to make sure you put in that extra S, right? .com, and you're looking under summer recordings. Okay, when is the due date? I have not put a due date. Try to do it before the next class, but understand if you do it very close to whenever the next class is, you will not get feedback on it until the following week, right? So whenever you find sometimes during the week when you could sit down and concentrate and practice the format and all those things, right? You will probably have to type it into the screen, onto the screen itself, or copy and paste it from a Word document into the screen, right? It will not let you up. I don't think it will let you upload a file attachment because I didn't have the option for 2 sets of responses. So I just put long answer. So you'll have to type it in there as a point, right? All right, any questions? Any concerns? Anything anybody wants to ask? So if not, once you have the homework, right, then you are free to leave, enjoy your weekend. And next week we'll pick up with reports and emails, right? And maybe some Grinch pictures instead of this surprise looking Santa Claus. All right, bye guys. So I'm stopping the recording and I'm muting myself. But I'm still here if there's anybody with questions, right?